Well, there is no doubt about it. We saw whenever there is a problem between Pakistan and United States at any level, and US is pushing Pakistan to get its demands met, definitely nuclear weapon and stories about Pakistan's nuclear weapon surface through anonymous sources in New York Times, Washington Post, and elsewhere in the United States press. The same happened most recently when Damon Davis issue was really hot and Pakistan was not budging and Saudis had not come in. That is when another story came up that Pakistan is having an arsenal that is much bigger and much sophisticated than its needs. There is no doubt about that Pakistan is facing that pressure. But that is what the Americans would probably have to realize, American establishment would have to realize, that with Israel having a weapon, India getting nuclear technology in the name of civilian nuclear program for power generation, and Pakistan sacrificing everything for United States war in Afghanistan, which has become its own war in many ways because of poor policies of General Pervez Musharraf and other dictators. This is not something that Pakistanis will budge. And this is one point probably that can unite Pakistani nation. And there has been tremendous stories talking about Taliban taking over Pakistani military arsenal and they could have a kind of a bomb. The fact is that India is just next door, which is far more sophisticated and which has all the ambitions to sort of do that. If they cannot get hold of anything of the sorts, how can a rudimentary militia like Taliban or Pakistani Taliban or Al-Qaeda can do it? This is all meant to create a scare in public opinion. And I compare it with the stories about Israeli nuclear program that appear in US press. And of course, they are negligible.
Well, why is it then that Pakistan has actually done this in terms of the figures to have doubled its nuclear arms stockpile in recent years to exceed 100 weapons on par with India? I mean, what message is this sending to the West, Ataf?
Well, Pakistan's nuclear weapons are actually a deterrence device. They're making sure there's a peace in the subcontinent. In terms of increasing our capacity of nuclear weapons or weapon of mass destruction, Pakistan's conventional army is far smaller. And in fact, India is the second largest buyer of weaponry in recent time. At one time, only in terms of Air Force, it's spending about $10 billion US. And we have recently seen how Britain was and US were there presenting their most sophisticated weaponry technology there to selling it to India. Compared to Pakistan in its current economic state, it's day by day is getting very difficult to keep such a large army. And it's very expensive and very sharp burden upon Pakistan's deteriorating economy as well. So Pakistan has no other choice but to collaborate with its friend, most trusted friend, China, to increase its power of deterrence, to make sure they ensure that there is a peace in the region, and we can discuss our issues on equal level with India.
Okay.
So I think Pakistan's nuclear assets is not an issue.
Go ahead, Naveed Ahmed.
It's not about Pakistan's nuclear weapons and the stockpile that Pakistan has. It's the sophistication that worries United States, Israel, and other countries, including India. And Pakistan has very smartly understood what kind of missiles and rockets and tactical weapons it needs to engage India and contain its, force. So it's not the number at all. This is a misleading statement, and that is deliberately done in the American press. The real thing is, and the real fear is, Pakistani scientists are very good, and the technological edge that Pakistan has over India, they recently tested a double-barrel rocket, short range, 60 kilometers, about 3 days ago, and things like these are not visible in India.
Okay, I'm glad you clarified that. Gareth Porter, one of the headlines read, officials say that U.S.-Pakistan relations are facing their biggest crisis since 9/11. The depth of that is pretty severe, wouldn't you say? What's next in their relationship?
Well, first of all, I do agree that it is the most serious, most severe clash of interests that we have seen between the United States and Pakistan, perhaps at any time. I think at the time, right after 9/11, the United States put very severe pressure on President Musharraf to go along with U.S. plans for Afghanistan. And he did so, although he then pulled back a little bit, or more than a little bit from that later on. But at that point, Pakistan was not feeling like it could really stand up to U.S. pressures. And I think now what we're seeing is that the Pakistanis are much more alarmed about the consequences of U.S. policy in Afghanistan and across the border in Pakistan. And that is what has brought the relationship to this degree of extreme tension. I do think that it's a very serious situation which is brought on, as I've written very recently, by the fact that the Obama administration has pushed both drone strikes, the number of drone strikes and the pattern of the targets of drone strikes to a much higher level, much more indiscriminate level, and also has infiltrated hundreds more of unilateral intelligence personnel into Pakistan, and that is really what has provoked a new level of resistance by the Pakistani military leadership. And so I think there's a degree of danger here that the escalation of tensions will continue, and at some point, because the United States appears not to be willing to give an inch at this point, at least in terms of their public signals, there's a real danger that something will happen within Pakistan, a shoot down of a drone, a shoot down of a U.S. Helicopter crossing the border, or something that will create a new crisis. And I think that it's most unfortunate that the Obama administration seems to be unwilling to understand the degree to which its policies are indeed extremely provocative and actually cause a great deal of uneasiness, not just uneasiness, but real fear on the part of the Pakistani population as well as government.
Well, we've seen what they have done in terms of the oil tankers that head to Afghanistan for fueling, and how it's been basically attacked and stopped. But let me, since Gareth Porter, you said U.S. not giving an inch, I want to reflect on a statement here and get Atif Ali in on this. The U.S. has threatened Pakistan that without the U.S. financial aid, that's the $1.5 billion, that Pakistan would go broke. Actually, President Zardari, in reaction, has said, well, if that assertion was true, the interventionist policies of the U.S. would be the significant contributory factor to Pakistan's economic collapse. Can I get your reaction to that, Atif Ali?
Well, there are two main issues. One side is American administration's power to influence Pakistan at this stage. Well, on terms of economic terms, the current government, we know, which Asif Ali Zardari's government, came into power through a big contract called NRO, National Reconciliation Order, brokered by American administration and British administration at that time. So they are indirectly obliged to the American administration, since they had no clear policies for the country. Their reliance were on the foreign aid, and this is where Americans can do the real arm twisting, where they can really threaten Pakistan government to give in upon the laws which can bring in ISI and army under the parliamentarian rule, which is not wrong, but the real reason behind it are really worrying for the Pakistani population. In terms of army, we have clearly seen they have started a passive resistance against the American stranglehold. They have used the public opinion against them. There are some very political parties of Imran Khan. They are mobilizing people to choke their supply lines. So they're going to put American administration and NATO forces in a very difficult position to make them understand that they cannot stay here forever and ever. Okay. And it's going to directly have consequences on every country around Afghanistan.
Since we're running short on time, Naveed Ahmed, quickly, if you can, in 30 seconds. It was called the AFPAC policy. If the Afghanistan part isn't going well, how could there be a Pakistan policy? Give us your assessment on what the U.S. termed the region as an AFPAC approach to their policy.
Officially, Pakistan has declared AFPAC term as an insult to Pakistan. Secondly, Americans think that they can influence Pakistan and coerce into some kind of further subjugation. The next target you might see, and I fear that should not happen, would be more attacks on NATO supplies. And when NATO supplies are hit, U.S. is on its knees. Okay,
Gareth Porter, final comment from you on that?
I agree that is the greatest vulnerability of the United States. That's where the U.S. could, in fact, find itself unable to continue its policy if the Pakistanis were willing to really hold the line against the admission of NATO and U.S. supplies through Pakistan.
Okay, thank you very much, Gareth Porter, historian and investigative journalist from Washington, with the statements. Atif Ali from London, Pakistan Movement for Justice is who he represents, and Nabil Ahmed, who's a defense and diplomacy analyst from Islamabad. And of course, thank you, the viewer, for watching. Don't forget to send us your emails, comments, any critiques, or anything that you'd like to newsroom@presstv.ir. From Mikoba Tagway and the entire team from Tehran, it's goodbye.